Okay, welcome everybody. Going to stop sharing. Welcome to the event. Welcome to the first VCIB talk. This first one is focused on the disruptive energy as a service model. My name is Greg Overmans. I lead digital marketing here for VCIB, Vancity Community Investment Bank. And I'll be here helping with any of your questions on the chat, helping get your questions to Vince and the panelists. And we'll leave lots of time before the end of this hour for questions. So if you have them throughout, just write them down and I'll make sure to send them over to Vince when we open the floor. So without further ado, I'd like to send this over to Vince.
Well, thanks, Greg, and welcome everyone. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment and start with a land acknowledgement. I know we have people watching from right across Canada, and I've even seen some folks in the chat from the United States. So I would ask you to take some time to reflect and acknowledge wherever you are, the First Peoples who once utilized the lands you are on. I am located in Toronto, and I would like to acknowledge the First Peoples in this area, including the Huron, Wendat, and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississauga of the Credit. Welcome, everyone, to VCIB Talks, the Vancity Community Investment Bank webinar series, where we speak with and highlight executives from some of the most innovative companies in our country. My name is Vince Caspero, and I'm the Managing Director of Corporate Development and Clean Energy Finance, and lead the clean energy team here at VCIB. Today, we have with us the leadership of 3 companies that are at the forefront of clean energy and conservation development, and are on the front lines of building back better as our country and planet exit from the economic devastation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The 3 executives you are about to meet and hear more from are Dennis Fatino, CEO of Noventa Energy Partners, Derek Finn, President of Finn Projects, and Jessica Robald, Vice President Sales, Subterra Renewables. The macro topic for today is sustainable energy as a service within the context of building back better. The COVID-19 public health and in turn economic crisis has altered the way we work, the way we live, and fundamentally the way we interact with one another. Some of these changes will be short-term in nature and others more permanent. One of the longer lasting aspects of the crisis will be the greater linking of the environment and the economy. The days of choosing between the two are quickly coming to an end, as the need for public policy measures to support those most impacted has been swift and necessary, putting human compassion at the center of policymaking and not financial optimization. Governments of all political stripes will begin to look to transition from the redistribution of wealth to the regeneration of wealth. As the vaccines roll out and as global cases of COVID-19 drop rapidly, the light at the end of the tunnel is clear. Financial markets, as well as policymakers, are now beginning to focus on building back better. How we build back better is the critical piece for us as a country. Sustainable energy as a service on a macro level is the development of sustainable energy at no cost to the user. This concept will be a critical component of the Build Back Better movement. In addition, as markets begin to price in climate change and environmental degradation, the role of sustainable finance, which Vancity has been at the forefront of, will be needed now more than ever. So in saying that, let me start by passing the baton to Dennis Fatino so he can give a quick introduction on him and his great company.
Hi, Vince. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Dennis Fatino. I have been in the energy industry for the last 22 years. Started a company that many of you will know, I'm sure, in recent days, Enwave Energy Corporation in Toronto with my partners Omers in 1999. Grew that business, built the signature deep lake water cooling business, and turned it, I think, a relatively successful enterprise, which we sold to Brookfield, and they then took it to the next step and had some recently great news that they announced. I left Enwave in 2018 to start Noventa. We are effectively, Noventa Energy is an energy technology platform. We look and source new renewable technologies, which we then commercialize in projects that we build and secure exclusive distribution licenses for those technologies. And our engineering team actually works with the developers of the technologies to improve them for applications in the North American market. So that's it.
Great. And Derek, maybe you can give a quick introduction as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our company, Fin Projects, specializes in energy efficiency, and we're celebrating our 30th year in business. We cover all aspects for buildings, from ASHRAE 1, 2, 3 energy audits, down to engineering, developing energy baselines, tendering, and implementation. And since 2012, we've been carrying out turnkey energy efficiency projects, performance-based, with guaranteed energy savings. And for our latest projects, we've used Van City as for our funding, and we still continue with our engineering services for others, but we see for going forward for getting clean energy and deep retrofits that performance-based contracting is a key component of this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Derek. And Jessica.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I've been in the energy industry for 10 years now, starting out with Enercare on the energy measurement side, and joined Subterra in 2018. Subterra is a renewable energy asset developer manager. So we invest in our clients to develop geothermal systems and provide a turnkey offering all the way from the design, the installation, and ultimately the long-term operation of systems. Thank you.
Great. So the first question I like to pose to all of you, and as I mentioned, and as our viewers are seeing, we have some of the leading executives here. So as Canadian policymakers continue to advance clean energy infrastructure projects, and more specifically transitional infrastructure projects, in order to lead us to a net zero economy by 2050, what market opportunities are created for each of your respective businesses, and how does sustainable energy as a service more broadly help achieve both the market and the public policy objectives of a net zero economy? So I'll open it up at Dennis or anyone else want to start, and then we can just go from there and interject as you wish. And folks in the chat, feel free to fire away as well.
Sure, I'll take a shot at it. I think the fundamental difference that's happening now in Canada and the United States with the election of Joe Biden is carbon pricing. As we begin to realize the effects of carbon emissions on the airshed, and as governments begin implementing policies to price carbon, the opportunities for new technologies and new innovation are tremendous. And so that's where we as Noventa see ourselves positioned, where we want to be the platform that takes these new technologies that may not be yet fully commercialized, where there is some skittishness in the marketplace, and we work with the developers, as I said, to make them better, and then we deploy them in projects. And right now we've got the Huber technology that we've got a number of projects that we're working on with the wastewater energy transfer, Kelvin thermal energy as well, and a couple of others that we are in the works with right now. But that opportunity arises through carbon pricing. So the more we go down that road, the better the opportunities.
Great. And I would ask all of our guests if you can just keep your camera on. It would be helpful. Anyone want to go next, Jessica?
Yeah, sure. I'll build on what Dennis had to say. So fully agree. And I think that as the policies become more stringent and we move towards a carbon-free economy, there are two kind of main roadblocks that I can think of. One of them being the complexity of moving from how developers have conventionally built to renewable build, and kind of the mental challenge that comes with changing processes, as well as the upfront capital cost to move from conventional to renewable. Those are two kind of fears and roadblocks that exist. And through providing energy as a service, we really eliminate those two roadblocks, because developers can partner with a partner who is an expert from end to end. So someone that can really hold their hand and bring them through those complexities, and eliminating the capital barrier through creative financing solutions. We're able to save capital up front, and through having such an efficient energy to tap into, being geothermal, we're able to have long-term cost savings as well. So it really breaks down the barriers of achieving a low-carbon future.
Yeah, and one of the biggest barriers, of course, is financing. So, and our market that we concentrate on is primarily, well, exclusively in retrofits. So now we're looking to the building owner to come up with money, and we've just managed to get them to the point where they say, yes, we need to be energy efficient. And now we're turning around and saying, well, that's not enough. Now we need to need deep retrofits. And so how are we going to be able to afford this? So certainly using energy as a service is a part of that, but there are a number of other factors that need to come in. So we need to have financing available for these projects. We need grants available. We need, these are deep retrofits. They're not just simple 5-10 year projects. These are more like the 20-year projects. So we need to be able to address those. And as we go forward, our new technologies are obviously going to help us, but we have to get to that point.
So, Derek, let me just say, if you're looking for financing, I may know someone who can who can help in that regard. But I think you're actually leading into my next question here, and it allows me to obviously provide a cheap plug for Vancity, and it's not the first, and it won't be the last. But what role does sustainable finance play in driving this? We know finance is critical in generally in infrastructure projects, but more specifically for renewable energy and conservation-based projects, and frankly, being in businesses that has energy as a service. How critical is having a financing partner that obviously understands your needs, understands the industry, and is able to provide the necessary flexibility that match your values and the values of the financial institution as well.
Yeah, and it's such a small little marketplace on the financing side where there are not a lot of companies that understand this market and that have the confidence and maybe the flexibility to be able to fund projects that paid out of savings, to have to be able to see that these are doable, that the savings are real, they can be verified, and it's part of the critical component. But I must say, beyond that, limiting those terms to 10 years certainly is a problem, and it has to be supplemented with other financing. So financing from Vancity, for example, and then we would look to FCM for their financing, and they're looking for deep retrofits, 25% minimum, with grants going up, and others, including City of Toronto and CMHC, but there's not enough of that. And so that's something that we really need to build on and need to be able to bring into the market, into the marketplace.
Great. Everyone else is good?
Yeah, no, I think Derek's right. I think this is, from a financing standpoint, renewable energy is a long-term play. And so, I mean, in the ideal world, it's a perfect candidate for, pension funds. That's why you saw teachers go in and pay a premium for Enwave, because they realize that just like OMERS did when we built Deep Lake Water Cooling at Enwave when we started it, it was a 50-year lease with the city, but it'll be around for 100 years. And you typically, and again, going back to my Enwave days, we proved that renewable energy is an annuity type of investment, and it's perpetually renews. And so if you buy into that vision that this is something for the longer term, and that over a longer term horizon of a holding pattern, you're actually going to come out ahead. If that's, if your goal obviously as an investor is to do that, then that works. If your investment horizon is a 10-year play and you're in and out, there aren't going to be a lot of meaningful renewable energy technologies that are going to achieve that. It's just not viable. The energy is cheap that comes out of the technology, but the capital cost is great. And so until we're able to bridge that disparity between the capital cost of renewable energy and the capital cost of conventional polluting energy, and narrow that gap like we did with solar panels, for example, when the proliferation of solar panels came, and wind energy and all the other technologies that are becoming cheaper and cheaper as there's more greater proliferation, then until we get to that stage, you're going to be paying a premium. But in the long run, again, I go back to the success of Enwave. The results are there, but and the people that are smart enough to invest in those technologies and in those companies early on reap rewards later.
Great. Yeah, I just add on as well in terms of the sustainable and creative capital. It's so important when we're working with new developments. Every development is different and has different needs, and our clients are looking to make decisions quickly. So having the flexibility and being able to customize each solution from the financing perspective is critical, and really enables us to be unique and meet customer needs.
So I'm seeing some questions pop up here in the chat, and I have a series of questions, but I'm going to try to cherry pick questions that sort of work into some of the things we're talking about. So one of the questions I think Jack asked here is who covers the maintenance costs? So they're long-term contracts. How do the maintenance costs get covered over the life of the asset? And then there's a subsequent question also in terms of validating the risk, and we can jump into that in a moment in terms of de-risking projects, and we can speak to that. So why don't we talk about the maintenance? And I know each of you have different asset types, so it's going to be different for each of you. But
I can talk about the projects where we've done energy retrofits, and all of those projects in the buildings have had maintenance being taken care of before by the building, and we just tag on to that. There isn't too much additional, and in some cases it's less. It's new equipment. The maintenance should be down for the first few years, and it's really the building that takes care of that. But at the same time, we look over their shoulders. We've actually developed little apps so that we can make sure that the maintenance is done on a regular basis, and all of that data is fed back to the property manager, to us, and we go forward.
Right. So in Subterra's case, we take on the maintenance and operation of our system. So that's part of the value add of going renewable, it's really the developer can feel confident that they're bringing in a partner that's not only supplying a renewable solution, but that is going to be there long term. So we're typically engaged with our clients for a 30-year period, and we take on that maintenance, and then in turn to the client, we have a fixed cost to the client. So there is no ongoing maintenance that they need to account for, and they're protected from price increases or any kind of breakdowns that you may see in a conventional scenario. We fully maintain the system and take on that risk.
Yeah, I think what makes energy as a service attractive is you have to try to de-risk the offering to the customer as much as possible. So the more risk that is transferred in terms of with respect to the technology that you're providing away from the customer, the more comfort the customer has in implementing whatever it is you're offering. When you transfer the maintenance risk or operating risk to the end user, the question comes in, well, what are you offering? What is it that you're bringing to the table? So, it's one of those things where you have to believe in the product that you're putting out in the market and the service that you're providing, and you're getting paid for it. And if you're getting paid for it, you should assume the risk and take care of the maintenance and operation, as Jessica and Derek said.
And I can speak to some of from a financing perspective. One of the things I look for and my team looks for from the de-risking is obviously we work with our partners in terms of trying to get a full understanding of the engineering and a full appreciation of the risk. But I think this is where, and Derek, this ties back into what you were saying in terms of the role of maybe the Toronto Atmospheric Fund, FCM, CMHC, et cetera, is the public sector can play a role here in helping to de-risk projects by taking maybe portions of the capital structure that might be too risky for a financial institution. Because at the end of the day, and I'm sure there's members of my investment committee here and they'll appreciate me saying this, so it's a plug for also our clients here, that we just can't wave a magic wand and deploy capital. We have regulators, we have stakeholders that we have to that we have requirements around our risk appetite. So having a level of government be a partner in some of these projects is absolutely critical. So I'm not sure if any of you want to quickly touch on sort of the de-risking of projects by having public sector partners at all.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from experience, most of these large infrastructure projects can't work without the public sector as a partner. So whether it's a partnership with the local municipality, whether it's a partnership with the grid authority, the ISO, and the power authorities, whether it's a partnership, funding support from different levels of government, these are large projects. Typically, I mean, there's also small renewable energy projects. So, but on the ones on a larger scale can't survive without the support and partnership of progressive public leaders. And we've been fortunate in Toronto to have that. The Energy and Environment Office, Jim Baxter, Fernando Carew, and their team have been leaders across Canada, not just Toronto. And the city of Toronto is recognized around the world for what they've done. I mean, from deep lake water cooling to geothermal stuff that they're doing with Subterra to wind. I mean, Toronto is a leader, and that's a testament to the people that work there.
Great. So I see a call that or a question has come up, and it may apply to, I know it applies to some of you, from Mike, and he's asking, electricity and natural gas prices vary significantly over a 20-year contract. Who takes a commodity risk in your long-term models?
Our models really just go out 10 years, and they're kind of fixed with a small inflation based on today's rates. So the risk is kind of on both sides, but we don't believe it's significant.
The beauty of geothermal systems is when we're designing a geothermal system, we can virtually eliminate the need for natural gas for heating. So in its own, it is hedging against future commodity price increases. In terms of electricity, that would be a flow through to the building. It's not a part of our fees. So the heating and cooling that's delivered to the resident is at a fixed known cost, and we can eliminate natural gas. So massive hedge against future price increases.
Yeah, I think that's what renewable energy technologies offer, is certainly a hedge against carbon and natural gas. And so whether you're doing geo or sewer heat recovery or storage of different kinds, you can eliminate the gas risk associated with increasing carbon prices. And on the electricity side, what I found works best is to Derek's point, where you share some of that, but you mitigate. There's ways to mitigate the electricity risk by guaranteeing a fixed coefficient of performance. And so when you can go back to a customer and say, we're going to guarantee you performance against the cost of electricity that's better than what any conventional technology can do, you're now mitigating their risk exposure to electricity. So there is a sharing, there is some, but if they're contractually guaranteed to have a better efficiency than they would otherwise have with a chiller or a heat pump on their own, they've now significantly diminished that risk on their side. So that's the beauty of renewable energy.
And a really good example is COVID, and some of the buildings that we retrofitted. Of course, people started staying home, and particularly on the water consumption, we saw the water consumption going up. But because we had retrofit, and one of it was actually the Van City building we had just retrofitted, we had just completed a few weeks before, we totally mitigated the extra costs, and they didn't even reach up what they were before. So it saving on the consumption obviously just really impacts the costing on the other side.
So quick question, just to open it up a little bit here. What parts of the project or what analysis do you do when you're making a decision in terms of what part of the project you decide to own or bring in partners, et cetera? How do you, for each of your asset types, how do you go through that analysis? Maybe you can give folks a bit of an appreciation for that as well.
I keep going first. I don't want to keep monopolizing. Jessica, you've got the answers.
So in terms of partners, do you mean through the process who we work with for financing, engineering, developing, et cetera?
So yeah, the EPC I think is important. I think what I'm referring to is, so energy as a service generally, there are certain components to it, right? But obviously, for example, in Subterra's case, you own a certain part of the process of the project, right? And then you bring in, for example, developers. How do you make the decision in terms of what part of it of the life cycle of the asset do you have with your developers and partners, and what part do you decide to keep on your own? So maybe just talk a little bit about that. And Dennis, you can go last on this one, okay?
Absolutely. So we really look at it as similar to what Dennis was speaking about before in taking on risk. We are really trying to take this entire kind of central heating and cooling system off the developer's plate. So our delineation point is the geothermal ground loop system. But we bring on an engineering team to work directly with the developer's engineering team and really holds their hand through the process to alleviate the burden of them moving down the path of integrating a new technology that they may not have worked with before or that they have little experience working with. So we really project manage the entire development of the geothermal system from end to end. And then in terms of who we bring in for partners, we manage those partnership relationships. So our engineering partners, we've sourced what we would consider the best geothermal engineers, being MEP associates. So we work with them on the design side, but we're really interfacing directly with the developer to alleviate any burden of the process that they would identify. And then really in terms of geothermal, eliminating any sort of critical path risk. So working with them on each specific site to develop a geothermal design that works on their site, custom process each time. Does that answer your question?
That was good.
Okay, great.
But you always nail it, Jessica. I'm not surprised.
For our projects, they're turnkey, so we provide the engineering, and we get pricing, or we go to specific contractors depending on what the project is and what the measures are, and so all of that we really see in one envelope. It's really the financing that we're going out to get, and to be honest, what we want to do is have the minimum investment in each of the projects, because we see this as limiting how many projects we can do if we have too much investment. So we would rather do more projects with less actual financial investment in them.
So from the Ventus point of view, we are, and we see ourselves as a technology platform. We develop projects only insofar as we need to showcase the technologies that we represent. So we're not just distributors. We have exclusive distribution licenses for the technologies that we represent, like Huber Technology and Kelvin and a couple of other smaller ones that are not as well developed as those two. But ultimately, we want to sell those technologies. So if Jessica comes and Subterra says we'd like to buy Huber Technology, we'll sell it to them. The difference is we don't just distribute the technologies. Our engineering team has actually filed process patents that improve the performance of the technologies that we distribute. So our process patent, our DFSC process patent that we have, actually provides additional, addresses some of the issues with respect to volatility of sewage for the sewage temperatures and flows with respect to the, that would be encountered if somebody just installed the Huber technology. So we work with Huber in Germany and Charlotte, and we actually customize a package, and then we would gladly sell it to Subterra to put it into, to integrate perhaps with their geothermal in a project, or we would sell it to anybody else that wanted to buy it. So from our standpoint, we really want to be the source or the entity that, and that's what we're trying to do, where we continuously source new technologies and help the developers work out the kinks in them to make them more commercially viable. And because it was like when I first started selling deep lake water cooling. The irony of it is the first customer I ever spoke to was Brookfield Place, or that time it's called BCE Place, and their chillers had just crapped out. And I remember talking to them. They said to me, Dennis, you know what? If we put in chillers again and they crap out, then someone's gonna say, oh well, that's the chillers, malfunction. But if we're the first idiots to put in this deep lake water cooling, we're going to be out of a job if it doesn't work. Funny, 10 years later, they paid $500 million for the company. But at the time, it was they didn't want to do it. Nobody wants to take the chance. And that was the difference. So for me, what that did was it showed me that somebody has to be there to take these new technologies like deep lake water cooling, like wastewater heat recovery, like Kelvin storage, like all these other technologies that are out there, and there are a lot out there, and find ways to integrate them into renewable energy projects that demonstrate the efficacy of these technologies, and use our internal engineering capacity of our guys to make those technologies fit into a specific application and then put them in play. And so we sell fully engineered technology solutions to developers until such time as wastewater energy transfer, for example, becomes a widespread phenomenon in North America, where we just start taking phone calls for the Huber technology, we'll develop the projects where we actually put the Huber technology to work. And we can demonstrate that they save money for the end user, they reduce carbon emissions, and they make money for the developer. But we hope that somebody else will develop the technologies. And that's our ultimate goal, because that's what needs to happen. Somebody has to take the lead on new technologies and integrating these new technologies in projects to show that they work. And that's what Noventa is doing.
So on that point, first of all, if that happens, Jessica, and you do buy one of Dennis's technologies, again, we're here to help finance that acquisition. And I see a question in the chat, and it's from Jan. And if it's Jan Guilfoy, the CEO and my boss, I'm feeling the heat now. So. And Jan mentions that you talked about the mind shift that is needed to advance renewable energy at the pace required. What would help accelerate that mind shift?
Yeah, so I think it's building on what Dennis mentioned. So I think we as a group here need to educate the market and have these conversations, have these talks, and have our clients understand that there's really no fear in going renewable. There's a path to developing sustainably that is both financially feasible and socially responsible. So educating the market to understand that, and then really having some of these champions develop these products. So having some of these keystone names develop geothermal, develop sustainably, and showing the mid-size to small-size developer that this is the route, there's a safe path to go, is going to really create that tipping point to where we see a few of these keystone names come on. And I know that between the three of us, we're talking to all of these kind of keystone names. It's just a matter of time before we hit that tipping point and the greater mass of the market sees that it's something that makes sense.
Look, I mean, going back again, when we first, in 2004, when I first started selling deep lake water cooling and we got every door slammed in our face, nobody wanted to do it. By the time we sold the business to Brookfield in 2013, we were getting phone calls from people up at Yonge and Eglinton saying, hey, can you connect our building? I mean, Enwave now no longer has to go out and find customers. Customers find Enwave now. And that's what happens, because it's, and it's, success has many fathers and failures an orphan, right? I mean, it was like nobody wanted to do it at the beginning, and at the end, everybody was taking credit for it and doing it. And so what you need to have early adopters. You need to have people like VCIB who step up to the plate and finance projects that traditional banks won't do. And as to Derek's point, it'd be great to get 30-year financing, but hey, we'll take the 10-year terms and, VCIB's support all day long. And when you start getting those kinds of early adopters, you'll see, I'm confident, for example, in this wastewater energy transfer, that it's going to be something that'll be done, as a routine course across North America in very short order. We're banking on it. And then the next part, the thermal storage, we're like Kelvin Thermal, where Kelvin comes in and takes, green power, off-peak power, stores it as high-grade heat, and potentially you can integrate it into a system like a district heating system, for instance, and provide district heat and integrate it into geothermal. It's about not tying your horse to one technology, but saying, what additional technology, renewable technology can I add to make this project more viable and reduce further carbon? At the end of the day, it's about reducing carbon in the airshed. Whatever we can do to maximize the carbon reduction of existing building stock first. Let's not talk about all these new developments. That's just determination, and that's just somebody that's determined to say, I'm going to build a green building and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be net positive, not even net zero. How do we reduce the carbon from the existing building stock? That's the challenge that we all have before us.
Derek, do you have any commentary around this, or?
No, I agree with what Dennis and Jessica are saying, and I guess just to emphasize, I've said it before, but we have our base financing to do these deep retrofits. We really need investment, and I think that investment probably comes from the federal sources, Ontario, and that money should be made available. The projects are there, the technologies are maybe in their infancy, but we're still getting good savings. And as we could progress more, we should have that funding available to be able to invest in those.
And look, the addressing the problem of existing building stock versus new builds is even better for a financier and from a financial standpoint, because, and even for the end user, because you go in, you build your project, and on day one you've got immediate cash flow. It's not about going in, building a project in the condo, or the new building comes online 4 years later, and you're now beginning to recoup your investment 3 or 4 years later. You get immediate cash flow, number one. Number two, you eliminate all the speculation. You get, invariably, you'll get engineering consultants coming in, and it's like doctors. You have 2 doctors, you have 3 opinions. Same thing with engineers. One will say, the efficiency of a chiller is X. The other one will say it's Y, and they're both right. It depends. The answer is how efficient is your chiller operation or your boiler operation? It depends. And so it's all speculative on a new building. But on an old building, you know what it is. This is what you've done in the last 15, 20 years. And if you can establish with confidence and convince the owner, especially when it comes to chillers, that, because nobody actually meters the electricity of a chiller, they should, but they don't. But if you can actually get to that level where you can show that, look, this is what you were paying, and here's what you're going to pay next year. It's a tangible, real savings, and there's no fudging the numbers. It is what it is, and you can prove savings to the customer. So there should be an incredible impetus on the part of everybody to address the existing building stock first and foremost before we even look at the future. The future there should be no discussion. Like every building should have boreholes underneath it if they can do that. Every building should have whatever technology is most appropriate for there's no excuse not to do that.
Yeah, and to build on what Dennis just said, it's performance contracting that can take you beyond that point. So there's a guarantee you're going to make that. And what's making our life that much easier now is the real-time monitoring. We can put meters on, primarily on the incoming gas, water, electricity, and we know by the minute how much is being used. And then we can put these meters down right onto the chiller, and we can set up our control systems, and we can know what the set points are, what they should be. We get an alert when these things happen. So this real-time metering is phenomenal. It really gives us an insight, and it's something that we always assumed, oh well, we're going to put a VFD and then we're going to reduce that energy. But when you actually see the real-time drop in that energy use, and it stays down at that level, it's a real eye-opener, and it gives confidence and gives us validation, measurement and verification.
Well, pivoting off of that, we have a great question here from Kira, and the question is, what do you see as the role for financial institutions in overcoming the information gap that prevents building owners and other industry actors, e.g. general contractors, from undertaking deep energy retrofits?
Can I just repeat what I said?
Well, yeah, it was perfect.
It really is, in being able to prove this, and the energy performance, overcomes one of the hurdles. So, your hurdles are, what do I do? Well, there's a whole suite of measures, a comprehensive suite that you should do. How do I finance that? That's where VCIB comes in. And how do I make sure I'm going to get the savings? So you can tie all of this together with the energy as a service. And now you have a product that is turnkey. The property owner, property manager doesn't have to worry about what they have to do, how do they engineer it, how do they implement it. That whole sequence is taken away from them. And at the end of this, the financing is provided, and there's a guarantee. So you're going to make these savings. So that should give people the warm and fuzzies about investing in these projects.
Well, and I just interject, and I think a lot of this has to do with, because Kira, the question you asked in regards to financial institutions, and I hate to get warm and fuzzy when we're talking about hardcore finance, but and our CEO Jan Guilfoyle talks about our values all the time, and all three of you know this well. When we've had conversations about financing some of your projects, when I go to my investment committee, and my team knows this well, I have to, and we have to show to them, yes, the economics and the risk management strategies are in place, because as I said, we have stakeholders and regulators that sort of guide us from a how much risk we're willing to take. But I also have to show what the impact is, and the environmental impact and the positive environmental impact. And that comes back to tying into the values that Vancity has. And that's why there aren't a lot of financial institutions, I think, who are able to finance performance guarantees, because there, as you mentioned, Derek, there's some complexities around it. There is some risk, and getting your head around that risk generally. And I think all three of you actually have experienced this. And that's why I firmly believe traditional sort of real estate lending doesn't work for you three. And I've had conversations with all of you and other members of your team when we're working on, and my other members of my team, Jonathan, Frank, and David Berliner, and John Paul Lau, and Toby, and others who speak with you and your teams when we're structuring transactions. If we took a real estate lens to it, I don't think we would have completed any transactions, just because it's just different metrics. It's a different way of looking at it. So that was a great question from Kira. I don't know if any of you have any additional thoughts on that particular point. Other than pumping Vancity's tires, of course.
No. I do want to pump Vancity's tires, because I got to tell you, you and your team are fantastic and have been tremendous support. I mean, we didn't reach out to Vancity. Vancity reached out to us, and Jonathan Frank made the phone call 3 years ago when we were just coming off the block, and Vince, you and David and the whole team have been tremendous in trying to help us find a way to make it fit. But that goes to what I was going to say, which I think renewable energy is local, and it's something that's going to start as a small flame that's going to grow, and because it's local, it's well suited for the Vancities of the world. We've been fortunate to talk to companies like Forum Capital and Selena Capital and others who are bold enough to take a look at that smaller view and provide the equity needed for those kinds of transactions. Subterra does the same thing, and so I think it's local, and I'm really happy that it's not the big banks. We talked to. I personally have gone with the Noventa proposition and the path forward to the big institutions, and the response I keep getting from them is, when you get to $500 million or $1 billion, come talk to us, because we love what you're doing, just not at $50 million bucks. And so, that's the difference. But a funny story. I remember in 2002 when I just started Enwave, walking in to the TD Bank to increase our line of credit from $5 million to take it up to $10 million. And we had just restructured the Toronto TDHC. In fairness, the predecessor company was a money-losing entity, lost money for years before we created Enwave. But we went in there, and my shareholders were the City of Toronto and OMERS. And the TD Bank said, well, I don't know, it's going to be kind of challenging. I don't think we can do it, because we can't. And that was why when we sold the business, we transferred all of our business over to Scotiabank because of that. And so that just goes to show that the traditional lenders were not prepared to lend to the City of Toronto and OMERS, back in 2002. What makes anybody think that they're going to step up to the plate now? Sure, when Subterra becomes worth $500 million, or maybe you are already, I don't know, but $1 billion, I'm sure there'll be tons of people knocking on your door, but nobody wants to be, people want to lead from behind. And unfortunately, we all love to jump on the bandwagon, but who are the people that actually take the lead? Those are the people you want to hit your wagon to, I think. And, Van City is an example of that. And some of the others that I noted before, they're the leaders. You guys are the leaders in financing, and you're small. And I hope you grow. But by the same token, when you grow, I hope you don't forget the little guys behind you when you were there, like the Noventas of the world.
Well, how about this, Dennis? You bring me a transaction where the City of Toronto and OMERS is a partner, and I'll and Jeanne is probably is laughing now when I say this. I guarantee you, we'll finance a $10 million line for you with the City of Toronto and OMERS as your equity partner.
Well, give me time. I'm getting there.
I know.
Give me time.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Van City's creative approach and understanding our clients' requirements has been critical. Performance guarantees are something that we offer to our clients most of the time. Their ask to us is, if you're asking me to step outside of the box and develop a building differently than I have for the past 30 years, what's your kind of commitment and your skin in the game in, you need to pony up and provide a performance guarantee. So it is a conversation, and Van City's flexibility to partner with us on those projects and the ability to have the vision with us has been critical in growing the business.
Well, I appreciate that. And Jeanne just made sure that she posted in the chat that we will never forget the change makers. So there you go, Dennis. You're hearing it. You're hearing it from the top of the food chain. That no matter what happens. We only have here about 5 minutes left, and I think this has just been an absolutely great conversation, really engaging. There have been a ton of questions coming through the chat here. I want to thank everyone for participating. Are there any closing remarks from the three of you? By all means. So we started with Dennis. I'm not going to put you in the spot again, but Jessica, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I think that it's, the people that have joined the conversation today and taken their time out of the day to think about renewables and making change. It's going to be, the people in this room who are going to lead change. And I think it's up to all of us to have these conversations with our network and to cause the people around us to think about change that are really going to be the drivers of leading the future.
I've just started reading a book by Bill Gates, which he's just released, which is How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. And he says that there are just two numbers you have to take care of. He says one is 51 billion, and that's the amount of greenhouse gases that we pump out on an annual basis. And the other one is 0, and that's 2050. And that's where we have to get to. So now it's daunting, and there's probably 10 or so major areas where we can get this change. We can change from reduce the amount of beef cattle. We can get rid of coal plants. We can put in solar farms. Electric cars. But we understand and we know that amongst ourselves that there's one or two niche areas that we can work in, and that's all we have to do. Each one of us is work in our niche areas. Our niche areas is existing buildings and finding any way possible to reduce that energy and implement clean energy. So it's a task, but we're up for it.
I just want to say that I think we should all be grateful to be living in a city where we have a local government and a local council and people work there that are very progressive and very, very committed to reducing and fighting climate change. From the Energy Environment Office to the City Water Department to planning, we have a strong leadership from the mayor's office on down and the city manager's office on down the city, also supported by the federal government. Anytime in the middle of COVID, in the middle of with minority government, when a government can stand up and say we're increasing carbon pricing, that's pretty bold. That's pretty bold, and I don't want to, go down the political route, but that's the kind of bold leadership we need, and we need to be able to have governments that, pollution doesn't have a political color. Whether you're NDP, Liberal, or Conservative, or Green, we have to fight carbon in the airshed, and we're fortunate to have a federal government that's doing that. And so it's incumbent upon the rest of us to jump on board and make these changes. And so there are a lot of leaders out there. There are a lot of building leaders connecting to District Energy and Enwave and to Subterra and using Derek's firm. We're fortunate to be there, and I'm just glad to be part of that mix in Canada. We really are leading the way. And with the help of Van City and lenders like you guys and find people that are stepping up to put the money where their mouth is, it's going to make it a lot easier.
Well, thank you to all of you. Thank you to the participants, it's really great to work with not only clients but partners. And I think at Van City, one of the lessons that was drilled into me on day one was that you're not clients, you're partners, and watching your companies evolve and grow, and financing your innovative projects is something that makes it worthwhile really to get up and fight through a pandemic and get on calls with all of you. And it's not always easy having to work through tough issues. And I think all of us having to make tough decisions and work through difficult problems, but we do it together. And it was it's an honor to work with all of you, and I look forward to continue to work and support your firms. So thank you all very much. And first one's done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Take care.